The soft murmur of conversation filled the lobby as Chloe Davis stepped into the bustling bank, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The overhead lights buzzed softly, and the air smelled faintly of coffee from the cafe corner. Chloe had been preparing for this moment for months. The loan she needed to expand her business, a woman-owned tech startup that had been steadily growing. She had all her paperwork ready, had done her research, and was confident the bank would approve the loan. But as she approached the counter, something in the air shifted. Chloe knew exactly where she was. Harrison and Wells Bank was one of the largest financial institutions in the city, known for its impeccable service and supposed commitment to supporting local businesses. But Chloe had learned over the years that things weren't always as they seemed. She had experienced the subtle discrimination that came with being a black woman in a space dominated by powerful white men. But today, she wasn't going to let it slide. "Good afternoon." Chloe greeted the bank teller at the counter, offering a polite smile. "I'm here to apply for a business loan." The teller, a young woman with platinum blonde hair and a cold expression, barely looked up as she processed Chloe's request. "Sure," she said without enthusiasm. "Let me take a look at your paperwork." Chloe placed the neatly organized documents on the counter, her fingers brushing lightly over the top. She had worked hard to make this day happen, and she wasn't going to let a few raised eyebrows get in her way. The teller flipped through the papers quickly, glancing at the financials and the detailed business plan. Chloe could see the brief flicker of judgment in the teller's eyes, a look she knew all too well. This wasn't about her business, it was about who she was. "I see here that you're the founder of a tech company," the teller said, her voice flat, as if the idea of a black woman running a successful startup was too much to process. "And your credit score is acceptable." "Acceptable?" Chloe repeated, her voice rising slightly, but she forced herself to remain composed. "My credit score is over 750, and I've been in business for 3 years now with steady profits." The teller didn't respond, instead continuing to flip through the documents with a detached air. Chloe's patience was thinning. She had been working tirelessly to build her company, and it felt like every time she tried to make progress, something like this happened. Another obstacle, another subtle form of racism. The teller finally set the papers down with a finality that made Chloe's stomach tighten. "I'm afraid we can't approve your loan at this time," she said, her tone dismissive, as if the decision had already been made before Chloe had even walked in. "The risk is too high for a company in its early stages." Chloe's chest tightened. She had anticipated a fight, but this was different. "I've provided all the necessary documentation," Chloe said, her voice now colder, sharper. "Why is my application being denied?" The teller looked at her, eyes narrowing as if she couldn't be bothered to explain. "The bank simply doesn't feel that your business is a reliable investment." Chloe's heart pounded in her chest. This wasn't just a loan rejection. This was something far more insidious. She could feel the sting of the assumption in the air, the belief that she wasn't capable of building something worth investing in. And Chloe had had enough. "Excuse me," she said, her voice firm, the calm she had been holding on to slipping away. "But I think you need to check your records. You're making a grave mistake." The teller raised an eyebrow, clearly irritated, but unwilling to let Chloe walk away without further questioning her. "What do you mean by that?" Chloe didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out her bank card, the one that carried far more weight than any credit score or loan application. She slid it across the counter toward the teller without saying a word. The teller took it, glancing at the card with a confused look. "What is this?" "This is my ownership stake in Harrison and Wells Bank," Chloe said, her voice now cold, laced with a strength she hadn't allowed herself to show before. "I am the largest individual shareholder in this bank." The words hung in the air like a bomb, the shock evident in the teller's wide eyes. Chloe watched as her face flushed with realization, her fingers trembling as she held the card. "I don't think you quite understand who you're speaking to," Chloe continued, her voice steady, commanding. "I'm not just a customer in your bank. I'm a major part of this institution, and I own a significant portion of it. I have the power to decide who stays and who goes around here." The teller stammered, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to process the information. She looked at the card again, her eyes darting between Chloe and the now bustling lobby. I didn't know. I didn't. I can assure you, you didn't," Chloe interrupted, her tone unwavering. "And I'm sure the CEO would be very interested in hearing about your behavior today." The teller swallowed hard, her face pale as she began to realize the gravity of her mistake. I'll inform my supervisor right away," she said, her voice small and apologetic. Chloe nodded. "I'm sure you will, and I expect a full apology by the end of the day." Without another word, Chloe turned on her heel and walked toward the manager's office, her head held high. She didn't need to wait for anyone's approval anymore. Her presence in this bank had just been redefined, and she wasn't going to let anyone erase the work she had put in. As she reached the office, the door swung open, and the manager stepped out, his expression startled when he saw her. "Miss Davis, is everything all right? I didn't expect you to." "It's not just about this loan," Chloe interrupted, her voice clear and unyielding. "It's about respect, and about what I've earned. I expect that to be reflected in how I am treated in this institution. And I'm not leaving until you make it right." Minutes later, the CEO, James Harrison, was on the phone with Chloe. He was apologizing profusely for the behavior of the teller and assuring her that the matter would be taken seriously. As she listened to his words, Chloe felt a sense of justice begin to swell within her. She had fought for herself, and now her voice would be heard. The CEO promised that the teller's behavior would be addressed, and that her loan would be approved immediately, with full acknowledgement of her contributions to the bank's success. When Chloe hung up the phone, she smiled. She had turned the tables. No longer would she be overlooked or dismissed. She was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who owned not just a stake in the bank, but the respect she deserved.